Okay, just gone 1 p.m. Chicago time, Tuesday, 22nd of November 2011. Hope you had a good day's trading today. Managed to put together a one-shot, one-kill for me, first trade today. So I was done trading by 9 a.m., which was quite nice, always the best kind of days. And we're coming up to Thanksgiving, so just wanted to make a couple of comments. Always coming into kind of big holidays, we tend to get a little bit of kind of bullish activity. Everybody kind of feels good about things normally. So wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of strength kind of running into Thanksgiving, and things will start to get really quiet tomorrow. We had the IMF coming out with some fairly kind of good news, supposedly about kind of rescue funding and so on. So I think the market kind of used that as a bounce off point today to kind of find a low and kind of bounce from it. Just on daily charts of better sine wave, here you can see we've broken below cyclical support, so we're in a downtrend here on this time frame. Got this little bit of a gap that's kind of sitting there. It's kind of a possible potential kind of gap fill type activity we might see tomorrow maybe. But remember, 135 minute chart, we've had our end of trend. This last sequence we kind of topped out, second cyclical turn. These overshoots failed and we've gone the other way. We're in a downtrend now on this 135 minute chart, so this isn't going to be over, I don't think, until we see a pullback to end of trend. And then when you put that on the bigger time frame, the weekly chart, this is it. We've got this pullback and a downturn going on here. So this is a weekly swing, a better sine wave going pullback to end of trend. So the energy is going to be to the downside, and I think we're certainly going to test down here at these kind of 1080 type levels, I think, and let's see where it goes from there. But that move really might kind of get going next week after Thanksgiving. And on better X trend again, we've flipped over the last few days into a downtrend now. So we had these kind of exhaustion selling signals. Finally, they kind of weren't enough basically to flush out the sellers and kind of get the move going above the 1260 type level, which is kind of key up here. We've broken through that, so on better X trend we're in a downtrend. Same deal on the trend line charts. And in terms of the trend oscillators as well, they kind of over the last week or so they've been signaling short. So we've got a cluster of kind of short signals up here that have at some point we'll be taking profits when the oscillator kind of flicks up. I'm wondering if that might happen tomorrow or the next day. If that's the case, we'll have to see how this runs, or is it just going to, kind of keep on going? Certainly not an extreme reading down here, but it is minus 126.27. It's kind of ticking around because the day has not been finished in terms of a close there. Let me just show you long-term tip bar charts. So first of all, the 40,500 tip bar chart. With Monday, Tuesday's activity, we've had a pullback to end of trend kind of sequence here. This one, the first end of trend, obviously didn't hold. The exhaustion selling, this was just kind of getting this move going. So we've kind of played down to push past this end of trend and got a little kind of resistance support kind of leg going in here. I must admit, whenever I see these with the bullish divergence patterns kind of lining up like this in a line, we normally see some kind of more extreme selling activity that'll end up being something like a flush signal. Sometimes we get another exhaustion signal or a fairly deep bullish divergence signal here. So with today's activity, we went down to 1180, and that's where we kind of sprung off. And that was about as much damage as we did on the downside. So I'm surprised we didn't go a little bit further and kind of really flush people out. So I'm wondering if we have actually seen enough damage on the downside in order to flush people out and stop this trend momentarily and kind of go the other way. When you go back down a time frame, though, 13,500 tip bar chart, that was that selling down at the 1180 type level, ended up being exhaustion selling on this time frame bullish divergence. And you can see a little bit of a rush for the doors there with these blue professional bars kind of getting going. But as I'm looking at this, we're coming back down. This will be an interesting area to test, because if this was where the professionals found that as an acquisition zone, then they'll pick it back up when it comes back into that zone. So let's see what happens there. And then on the 4,500 tip bar chart, you can see the beginning of the day, we kind of sold off yesterday's activity. We kind of bottomed here with this end of trend flush patterns and so on. And we went into this quite funny trumpet looking kind of pattern here. It's kind of a complex correction on the way up with just wider and wider bands kind of going in terms of better sine wave. and then we kind of broke down overnight and then continued with the exhaustion selling, bullish divergence patterns, and that's where we've rallied on. So this I interpret as a rush for the doors, so basically getting on board this move with this exhaustion selling. That's not the end of a move where we've had exhaustion buying, I beg your pardon, and we kind of end up the move. This is kind of getting on this move quickly because people see it's reversed and going the other way. So when we test back into that kind of acquisition zone, that needs to hold today in order for us to kind of keep going in this kind of temporary, I would suggest, uptrend. But we've got FOMC this afternoon, so let's see what happens there. Then in terms of day trades today, so this is just one shot, one kill for me, looking at the 1500 tip bar chart, and we at the very beginning of the day we had this amateur down bar, you can see here. Amateur down bar pullback was going to go to end of trend, I thought, but we reversed and went the other way. We'd had exhaustion selling and there was enough strength in the market to kind of get going. So this didn't kind of complete normally to a pullback to end of trend, just decided to reverse kind of midway and go into this kind of little trending move here. So I jumped on board at 11.90 even, got out at 94, which was very close to the little high here, which was kind of good. So we've had our exhaustion buying, bearish divergence kind of comes in and we roll over. On the 4500 tip bar chart, it was this sequence here. So we were in a support to resistance kind of trending phase, and that's where that move topped out at 94 there quite nicely. And then looking at the 500 tip bar chart, here's the open. There's that amateur selling kind of initially. Hit support, have exhaustion, selling at that point, and we bounce from there. But you can see this move kind of topped out quite nicely. Wasn't a classic pullback to end of trend. It was actually a dirty end of trend because the pullback level gets violated, but you can see the sequence of momentum here in terms of buying. So we have all the exhaustion buying here, and we just lose momentum as we go up here with flush signals flushing out the last of the buyers there, and then we sell off. We initially get this little test back up, these amateur bars kind of coming right back up. There's that flush signal there, testing back up. That fails. The amateurs are trying to buy a breakout, doesn't work, kind of goes the other way. We come back into support and you can see another test back up, amateur up bars into cyclical resistance. It's a Rambo pattern up here, so being led by the amateurs. Blue professional bars selling down here, 1, 2, 3 blue professional bars, and this move kind of gets going to the downside and ends up going down to the 1180 type level. Test back up, which is kind of, you saw this extreme buying here, bearish divergence, and then it kind of comes on down, kind of keeps on going there. That move on the 1500 tip bar chart looked like this. So you can see we've had our exhaustion buying, bearish divergence. We find support, come back into very weak buying, cyclical resistance at this point, and then break into this downtrend, kind of down here in the extremes, selling at this point here. Just a couple of points, a couple of questions I got. I think I've gone over this at some previous times, just in terms of these extra signals that you'll see on my charts. This is just something I'm playing with at the moment that I want to kind of get right before I release it. It's an improved version. Well, it's an improvement, I think, on the better momentum signals, and I'm showing 3 different types of signals here on these charts. The first one is the pro signal exit, so these kind of exhaustion buying signals when they happen with professional bars. Then I'm looking for the first bearish divergence or bullish divergence signal after exhaustion, here and here, if you like, for these kind of magenta purple dots, and I put on these kind of just vertical trend lines just to help me visualize where those things are happening. And then flush signals are also shown, so you can see the flush signals on. So you can see some flush signals here, just yellow flush signals, just exactly like better momentum. So if you're kind of curious what's going on with the charts, why they look a little bit different from yours, if you've got the better indicators, that's all I'm doing, just putting those things on. I think for me they're more helpful kind of visually on the price bars than actually below the price bars, and they help me line up where this kind of volume momentum is actually going. So that's the reason for that. And then also got a question today just talking about time frames and what time frames I'm looking at to determine trend. The questioner was just asking, whether to look at the 4,500 or the 1,500 tip bar chart for trend. I must admit, I like looking for these exhaustion signals on the 1500 tip bar chart. Let me just show you this on the 1500 tip bar chart. So looking for exhaustion buying and selling signals and bearish divergence signals after that for changes in trend. And then when we get them like this, waiting for an end of trend sequence, on the downside, and then here and here. So On the 1500 tip bar chart, I'm looking for exhaustion, buying and selling, and bearish and bullish divergence signals after that, and then looking for kind of end of trend or second cyclical turns after those type things. I'm looking at the 1500 tip bar chart, and then the 4500 tip bar chart, the kind of major swings on better sine wave. And when these kind of break out, we'll have days like today where seemingly so far we've not broken out of one of these kind of cyclical resistance or support levels yet. So if we're going to get a trend move today, where is it going to happen? Most likely it's going to be as the result of some kind of exhaustion signal. So if we've exhausted the buying here, and this is a rush for the doors and kind of getting onto this move with extreme buying at this point, we're coming back into that professional acquisition zone. So if we're going to break into an uptrend, that's what I would expect today, having seen that. But let's wait and see. I'm kind of danger when I start saying the market will do this or do that. I'm a momentum player looking 10 maybe 15 minutes out, and I just go with what I see rather than trying to predict what's going to happen. Okay, so I'll tag on this one shot one kill day trade after this video. Again, going into Thanksgiving is going to get pretty quiet. Not sure if it's going to be worth putting up any videos kind of over the next couple of days, but if you're taking time off over Thanksgiving, enjoy it and recharge your batteries. Long 1190 even. This is not a great entry because pullback was extremely shallow. Should have been entering at this support, but I was just hoping that we'd hit support on the 1500 tip bar chart here, because after the open we sold off with an amateur down bar into this exhaustion selling, and we just bounced from there. I was just hoping this would kind of come into a support here, but we just kind of turned around and just headed into I think a strong uptrend. So kind of with yesterday's activity and overnight, I think we were kind of bottoming out. Go to the 4500 tip bar chart. Yesterday we were taking quite a lot of time kind of bottoming out in the 1180s, and now this kind of sell-off into the open has just been kind of blue professional bars kind of coming in, buying into that zone again. So hoping for a breakout now above 1190 into a bit of an uptrend. So again, not a great entry, but let's hold on and see where it goes. Here we go, just a minute later, a bunch of blue professional bars kind of coming at the highs, but I think that's just acquiring at this breakout level. Have a little amateur down bar here, and we break above the highs of that, so we're going to 91.5 now. And so that was just a little kind of test, maybe some amateurs kind of getting short, and then here we go breaking into this. So blue professional bar here. So it'll run hopefully to resistance on the 4500 tip bar chart. We're almost at 92, so let's hope to surprise people a little bit, and we need something that'll offset the kind of exhaustion selling down here. We're at 7,000 already on better momentum. So let's, okay, there we go. So exhaustion buying pro signal just came in there, and we've got a flush signal on the 500, and we're coming up to resistance here, but we've overshot in these two time frames, so this ought to run to pull back to end of trend. So let's see, still holding long. A minute later, got up almost to 93s. We're up at 9,000 on better momentum, running out of a little bit of energy, but it's still, it's all buying at the moment, so hopefully on these little retraces people just use it as an opportunity to kind of get long again. So yep, still holding out for 94s. First blue professional bar coming on the 500 tip bar chart, kind of at these highs. We're at 93 3/4. So just waiting for a final little prop. There's quite a lot of supply, it looked like, there at 93 3/4, but it's not unusual for it to just chomp through that and just end after that supply is kind of eaten up. So still holding out for another half point. There we go, taking out 94 for 4, one shot one kill, which is good. And there's about 6,000 here on better momentum. We've had our exhaustion buying kind of here. There might be a divergence pattern here, but we haven't seen pullback to end of trend on the 500, so although we're coming up to some kind of resistance at this point here. It's interesting, yeah, as soon as we popped through 94, seemed like a lot of supply there, and then all of a sudden it just went through all at once, and now it's kind of collapsed down a point and a half, point and a quarter, kind of the other way, point and a half the other way. It's interesting how that happens, and flush signal kind of going off there, so nice to be out. So is it 8:47 a.m. and one shot, one kill. I'm going to stop there. Yesterday had a good day. Yesterday initially had a one shot, one kill, then another 3-point trade, and then I got cocky. And instead of going surfing straight away, I got taken out on a stop for loss of 4. So net up 3 for yesterday after 3 trades, but I would have been up 7 after 2 if I'd just not have been cocky. Anyway. So today, not going to make that mistake. Going to stop there. Hope you had a good day's trading.